Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back. In this video, we are looking at the Monday slate. We have 7 games tonight, starting at 7 o'clock. So let's get into it. It's looking like a pretty ugly slate so far. We'll see if we get some more news on the slate. But there's not a ton of great plays that jump off right now. But we'll dig into it. So as always, appreciate if you guys hit the like button. It's a simple thing that helps this video reach more people. So if you guys don't mind, appreciate that. You can check out Twitter for updates whenever I don't have a chance to make a new video, or even last time we had some late news yesterday. So always post the final scores on Twitter. So check them out, or you can check out the website. Yesterday we did fine on DraftKings and double ups because of some of the value with Winslow, and then some of the point guards that we paid up for Fox and LaMelo Ball did great. So let's get started at today's slate. We have three guys above 10,000: Harden, Luka, and Lillard. Out of the three, I'm really looking at like Lillard and Luka. Harden is 11,000. I kind of prefer Kyrie today at 91, just based on the savings. I don't think I want to get up to Harden at 11,000 when I have Luka, Lillard cheaper, and then I can go Irving at 1,900 bucks cheaper. Luka has been fine, but hasn't had a couple of duds basically. Even though he got the win last game for fantasy, it was a dud with just 50 at 10-8. We definitely wanted more. Then Lillard is 10-4. He's been playing big minutes. Has a great matchup here after a couple of tough ones against Phoenix, Denver, and Los Angeles. If Charlotte is banged up again, I could see Lillard absolutely go off against this team. So he's definitely a play, even though he is expensive. I like Kyrie Irving because got the day off for rest last game, so he is going to be pretty fresh, not having played in a bit. Maybe missing a few games or missing a few days is going to help him shoot a little bit better. He was shooting fine, but from 3-point percentage was down the last couple of games, and it's a good spot against San Antonio's given up the fourth highest 3-point percentage to opposing teams. I think a guy like Kyrie Irving should absolutely eat. Even when he wasn't knocking down a lot of his threes, he was still putting up 50, high 40s, low 40s fantasy points, and we know he's a guy that can absolutely get hot and be unstoppable from three. So I really do like going to Kyrie here at 9,100. I think he gives you 50s, even 60-point upside. Other guys at point guard that look appealing. Kind of looking at Jamal Murray. If the Sixers are without Embiid, we can look to Ben Simmons. Even Tobias is questionable. So if one or both of those guys miss, Simmons would be definitely a play. LaMelo is 87. He looks good if there's no Gordon Hayward, but I think they probably just held Gordon Hayward out for some rest because he was expected to play last game and then he got downgraded. Maybe he's actually hurt, but we'll see. And then haven't had the status updated on Devontae Graham if he happens to be back. That will also hurt Ball a little bit. John Wall don't know what they're going to do. He was absolutely dreadful. The Rockets are one of the worst teams to target right now. They're just completely dysfunctional. He put up 14 DraftKings points yesterday, shot terribly, had no peripheral stats besides the scoring. They've been resting him on back to backs. If he does do that again, I think Oladipo at 77 is a good play. Could even play him just without the lack, which just with not a ton of options right now. You could play him even if Wall plays. But we'll see what happens here. But definitely don't want to play John Wall. He could be rested, and then I'd rather go Oladipo. Then Sexton is kind of expensive at 75. Garland is way expensive at 6,900. Probably looking at the low 6K range with Mike Conley, maybe TJ McConnell if there is no Brogdon again today. And if Devontae Graham is in, then he looks playable, even though he looks better if there's no Hayward because he will definitely be starting. If he's in and Hayward's in, he could come off the bench because it looks like LaMelo Ball's not going to be giving up his starting spot anytime soon with the way he's playing. And then for value, we kind of have to take a wait and see approach here. There's not a ton in the 4K range. It would be Shake Milton if the Sixers are down a few bodies. It would be all the way down here. Nothing really right now unless we get some injuries. The Nuggets have PJ Dozier. You can play at shooting guard or small forward. It's only 3,200. Shooting guard options tonight is Donovan Mitchell is 86. It's a great spot against the Pelicans. Conley is back. Very rested last game as expected. If Brogdon plays, don't think he looks great against Philly at 8,100. It's the matchup isn't great unless the Sixers are down and B, then that matchup will be a lot better. Fournier is expensive. Ross is also expensive, but there's just not a ton of options on the slate where I think you got to consider a guy like Ross, who If he can catch fire from shooting, he will put up 40, 30s, high 30s, low 40s fantasy points, getting around 30 plus minutes off the bench. No Ennis again today. So he looks like a playable option. We have a good price tag on like Malik Monk if they're gonna be without a few pieces again like they were yesterday. Bledsoe is 53, but the matchup is really tough. He's been getting more minutes, but the matchup is enough to scare me off of him a little bit. And then for value, you have some of these Pacers guys if there's no Brogdon like Aaron Holiday, and then you have PJ Dozier's 3,200. First game back in almost a month last game and played pretty well. He only played 14 minutes, but that game was a blowout, so he didn't have to play more. But he's a guy with all the injuries still, with no Gary Harris, was still missing both of their power forwards. He should quickly creep up into the 20 minutes or so. So he's a guy that we can look to. But right now I'm looking at Oladipo because I do think there's a chance John Wall sits, and if that happens, he looks really good. Small forward, DeMar DeRozan looks great at 8,400. His price tag has quickly jumped up after a good performance last game, and he was in the low 7K range for a while, which is when we were targeting him, and then he's missed a few games due to protocol reasons. He's in play because there's just not a ton of guys in his range. Like, I'd much rather go DeRozan than Ingram. Ben Simmons, we could play him over DeRozan if there's no Tobias or Embiid. The Michael Porter's price tag has quickly jumped up to 7,000. I think Rozier is in play. Ross is in play at 6,400. Then on a slate where there's not a ton in the mid range, you have like Will Barnes going to be in your player pool at 5,400. I don't really like Daniel House at 57 at all. And then we have in the 4K range, we can kind of look to Bridges at 48 if they're down a few pieces. We can look to Nawaba if there's no John Wall today. And for more value, you can look to Dwayne Bacon, who's 37. He played 29 minutes starting in place of Ennis. Could be a viable punt play tonight. But the guy that I like right now is PJ Dozier just because he's 3,200 and I expect him to quickly creep up in minutes. And the matchup is just really solid against Chicago. Power forward options, it's Sabonis is still really expensive at 10-1. I don't want to play him unless Embiid is out. Zion is in a really tough spot against the Utah Jazz. Probably think DeRozan looks the best out of the 8K range, him and Porzingis. In the 6K range, Washington went absolutely bonkers last night. If they're without Hayward again, without Graham, he looks good, even without Zeller. I like Aldridge a bit. He's 62. He could get overlooked because Washington is at the same price tag. He was in foul trouble last game against Pelicans. Was having a pretty good game, but the 5 fouls kind of killed his chance to creep up into the 6x range for value. I just like the matchup against Brooklyn. They play small, and whenever DeAndre Jordan's out there, it's just a good spot to target opposing bigs against him. And Jeff Green isn't going to be able to stop Aldridge by himself, so I think Aldridge will take a ton of shots down in the paint tonight. He can shoot some. He's been shooting threes this season, which hasn't been great, but at least he's willing to shoot some deep shots. So I don't mind Aldridge at all, 6,200. Covington's back to struggling with the shot. He's just super inconsistent. He gets hot, then he struggles, and he gets hot again. Been struggling right now. Played 40 minutes. The minutes are there. The matchup is solid, but I just have no confidence in a guy like him, in cash at least. And then in the 4K range, it's really Bridges at 48 looks playable. If there's no Brogdon, we could look to McDermott. And then Prince has been playing pretty poor. He's missed some games, and then he played 8 minutes. Don't really want to take too many guys from Cleveland, except for like Jared Allen is a guy we can kind of trust. Center, we have Jokic. Looks tremendous against Chicago. Should absolutely eat against Wendell Carter. I like Vooch a bit at 10-2, but I'd rather get up to Jokic. And then I'd rather go Embiid over Sabonis if I had to pick between those two. Don't have much interest in Zion, and then Jared Allen is already priced up to 85, so that price tag is a bit tough to get to. Definitely can go to Gobert against the Pelicans. We can go to Enes Kanter at 7,200 against the Charlotte front court. He should be able to have success against Zeller if he's back, or against Washington or Biyombo. You can play Washington at center. You can play Miles Turner. He would be a play if there's no Embiid. If there is Embiid, then definitely have concern about the foul risk. And then Steven Adams is 54. He's playable because they are just going to have to play in big minutes against Gobert. They don't really want to go to Zion, or they definitely don't want to go to Jackson Hayes and Hernan Gomez. Hernan Gomez has actually been fine, but he's still kind of not great from a defensive standpoint. So probably looking at Cantor right now just because I like the price tag a bit, even though I'd rather be a little bit cheaper. He looks great on FanDuel. He looks fine on DraftKings at 7,200. The matchup is just great. He should get a double-double in his sleep tonight. And if he gets some blocks and steals, he should be able to get you close to 6x, maybe a little bit more. And then last but not least, kind of looking at Adams just because he's pretty cheap. He should get you 30 plus minutes tonight. And he's shown to have a big ceiling, even though the matchup is tough. He's averaged about 27 in 2 meetings. That's almost 6x. That's not great, but looking at some other guys in his price range, I think he looks to be one of the better options. So that is pretty much it. Pretty ugly right now. We'll see. I mean, we're definitely gonna things can clear once we get the Sixers news. Once we get some other news on the slate. But yeah, go ahead and touch on FanDuel for you guys. Okay, on FanDuel, starting off at point guard, it's Luka is 10-6. Then we have Damian Lillard at 10-1, followed by Ben Simmons at 9,000. And then Kyrie is also 9,000. Right now, I like Kyrie a lot. I like Lillard, and then it would probably be Luka, and then Simmons, probably the fourth guy unless Embiid and Tobias are out. No interest in John Wall. I like Jamal Murray. I like Jamal Murray more than DeJounte Murray. I think LaMelo is more than playable on FanDuel at 7,900. And then we have a few pieces that are cheap, like Conley and TJ McConnell if there's no Brogdon. And then for value, you can look to Shake Milton if they're down a few pieces. Michael Carter Williams, although he's never fun to play. And that's it. So right now, I'll go with Kyrie. At shooting guard, we have Harden is 10-7, followed by Zach LaVine. I like some of the savings on LaVine. The matchup is not the easiest against Denver, but they're missing some of their better defenders, so I think he looks a lot better. I like Donovan Mitchell at 8,300 just because there's not a ton of options, but I'd probably go DeRozan over Mitchell. Then I like Oladipo a bit. Don't have much interest in Sexton. Rozier only if they're down like Hayward again would be interesting. And then you have Terrence Ross. Looks pretty good at 53 just because I'd rather go him over Bledsoe or Gordon. And then Sixers, Seth Curry looks good at 44 if they're down a few pieces, even if they're all healthy, he's playable. Right now, I'll go with Oladipo just because I think there's a decent chance that John Wall sits tonight, and that would make 76 Oladipo a really good play. Moving on, small forward, we have Gordon Hayward and Brandon Ingram. Gordon Hayward, if he's in, he looks solid, just because we have Fournier right in that similar price range. I'd rather go Hayward. Porter looks fine at 6,500. And I don't have much interest in Derek Jones or Chetty Osman or Carmelo. I like Monk a bit just because he's been pretty good off the bench, pretty nice scoring spark off the bench for the team. Barton is definitely viable. And then for value, you have like Justin Holiday at 45. If they're without Brogdon, you'll get a little bit more usage. You have Josh Richardson is just cheap. Doug McDermott, just a few pieces that you're not confident in, but you probably have to take some shots because the position as a whole isn't super thrilling. Right now, I think we might as well take a look at like Will Barton at $4,900, or if you want, you can take a shot on Michael Porter. See what happens by the end of the day. Power forward, Sabonis is a little bit cheaper than he is on DraftKings, but the matchup, unless Embiid is out, isn't great. Zion is almost 9,000. I don't feel great about targeting him against Gobert because he gets a lot of his points around the basket, and Gobert is going to make it a bit tough for that. Like Washington, I like Aldridge a bunch. He's only 56. He looks like a great option right now just because there's not a ton that I really like. I like Bridges. I like Tate if there's no Don Wall. And then it's not a lot right now that's super cheap that I want to go to. And then last but not least, at center, it's Jokic all the way up to 11,000. And then it's Vooch at 98. And then it's Jared Allen at 79. He seems like he's going to be pretty popular. If you want it to be a bit different, we can definitely go down to like an Enes Kanter is only 6,300. And then you have Steven Adams at 55. like the price tag on Cantor. It's a good spot against Charlotte. Price tag is really cheap. He's getting you good minutes off the bench. I mean, starting. If you wanted to go down to like Cody Zeller's 48 or Jordan, who's been coming off the bench, it's not been great. Probably lean to Zeller over Jordan if he's in. But Cantor's been getting you mid 30s in minutes, starting, playing well. Good shot to get some defensive stats here against Charlotte team that does turn the ball over, and they do have guys that like to drive to the basket, so hopefully he can get them blocked, although he's not really known for that. But that is pretty much it. Hopefully we got some more news because this slate right now isn't looking great. But thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Best of luck, and catch you all later.